Hello and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch, and I am thrilled to have you here with me today on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. Since this is the first show of 2022, which I still cannot believe we're there so quickly, I can still wish everybody a Happy New Year, and I hope January is treating you well. This show is for those wanting to learn more about financial wellness, and we are going to look at different life cycles, and we're going to explore them financially and emotionally, because personal finances are usually more about the emotions associated with your finances and the finances themselves. Although we are going to be fairly general in our discussion, we would love to hear from you, so please do check in with us, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. You can post your comments, post your questions. You can reach me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial, and we look forward to that so that we can make this more relevant and more personal for you. It goes without saying that our kids are the love of our lives. They are more than anyone else on earth. Do we want them in our lives and to engage with them and watch them grow? We want the best for them. In fact, we want more for them usually than we want for ourselves. And we call them the apple of our eye. They are our legacy. We brag about them to everyone and anyone who is willing to listen. And unfortunately, somehow, they are also the people we overlook most when we go through a divorce. Today, we're going to explore what is a child-centered divorce, and I'm really excited to have Rosalind Sedacca back on the show. Rosalind is a CDC-trained divorce coach. She is the founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network. She is an author. She is a radio show host, a sought-after resource, and much, much more. Rosalind, welcome back, and I am so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Hirsch. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
So I just want to, this is not to embarrass you, I promise you, but as I said before the show, there have been some wonderful comments about Rosalind. I just want to show how far back this goes for some people. And this is no pressure, but this is a quote I'm going to give you. Somebody wrote, "I love Rosalind's work. I met her when she spoke at the Start Over Smart Divorce Expo in New York City back in 2012. I think in 10 years, we can call this person a groupie, right? I absolutely loved how she and her ex handled their divorce when it came to their child." And that was just one comment when I announced the show. So there is a tremendous amount of insight that is coming with this show. And I am actually honored to have you on. So thank you very, very much for being here.
Wow, what a great way to begin.
and truly, that's not to put any pressure on, and I don't think I think you can handle a lot of pressure no matter what. You've seen a lot of difficult situations. That one's not too difficult, I guess. Can you share, though, a little bit more about your background and your training so people can really understand where this drive comes from and the passion behind it?
Yes, it comes from my own personal life. I was married for close to 20 years, and the marriage was starting to really become problematic. There was a lot of stress, there was a lot of conflict, and my son was starting to develop tension, headaches, and other symptoms of the stress at home. And I realized that staying together in this case was not going to be good, especially for him, but for any of us. And so I initiated the divorce. And of course, my ex was very upset about that and said, "You're going to destroy your family. Look what you're going to do to your child." And so I was very anxious and concerned about the emotional and psychological impact on my son. And I spent weeks of sleepless nights struggling with, how do I break the divorce news to my child? And how do we handle this moving forward? Back then, there was not a lot of information as there is today. That was back in the 90s. And so one day, at 4 a.m, I came up with a strategy for breaking the divorce news to my son, which was creating an actual storybook, a photo album with pictures and text that I wrote. And it turned out to be a very effective approach to getting my ex and I together in alignment about the divorce. And that started us off on a sound footing. And then the two of us learned how to co-parent and go through all the challenges that inevitably happen for everyone. And it wasn't until after my son was a grown adult in his early 20s, one day out of the blue, he came to me and he said, you know, Ma, you and Daddy did a really good job with your divorce. And I just wanted to thank you because most of my friends whose parents divorced either hate their parents or are very angry at them. And I think you guys were great. And I let out such a sigh of relief because I was holding on to so much guilt, because you don't know as a parent, you know, did I negatively impact my child? Is he going to be in the therapy office for the rest of his life? You just wonder. And that made me think about, what did I learn? What do I know? What did I understand? What did we do right so that my son could thank me as opposed to be angry? And that became the catalyst for my founding the Child-Centered Divorce Network, becoming a divorce and co-parenting coach, ultimately writing How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce, my ebook on how to break the divorce news to children, creating a lot of coaching programs and co-parenting programs to help parents make more successful decisions right from the get-go so that the divorce runs more smoothly, more easily, and more successfully, especially for the innocent children involved. And that's how it all began.
I love all of that. And, you know, a couple of things that you said that really resonate. You know, when you said as quickly as we can to get these things in there, you know, there are times where we do things that we can't always take back.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that becomes very difficult. I heard somebody say once, I can remember the exact phrase, but they basically said that words are cheap, but can be very expensive. And I think that's with our actions as well. So I love that. I love that approach. We're obviously going to explore more of that. We spoke about somebody who made a comment from 10 years ago. You've created the Child-Centered Divorce Month, which is January. One of the reasons that you're on now and not last month or the month before when we were speaking. And that in itself becomes a huge resource for people, which I think is very important. And I'm going to ask you to touch just a little bit on the website that you put together specifically for January, just so people understand some of the things that are out there for them.
Yes, it's a wonderful opportunity. January is the month where more divorces are initiated than any other month of the year, because most parents, as I did, wait till after the holiday season before breaking the divorce news to children. So it's a big month for divorce awareness. And I initiated Child-Centered Divorce Month because we're trying to help parents before, during, and long after divorce to make the best decisions to protect their children. And we do that by creating a special website that's available for free all through January. And I have divorce experts around the world, 4 continents around the world, who are providing free downloadable gifts. So there's ebooks and video courses and free coaching and webinars and other material that are helpful resources for parents to help them get through the divorce process, move on to dating more successfully after divorce, and helping their children through all the conflict and challenges that they face. And that simple website is divorced with an ED, divorcedparentsupport.com, divorcedparentsupport.com. And at that website, you just put in your email address and the page opens up with just dozens of free gifts, and you could download as many of those gifts as you want, whatever interests you at the time. And the experts, we have a little description about it, and all of these experts have one thing in common. They really care about children and families and helping parents make the best decisions before, during, and after divorce.
I would suggest people jump on that today, because when you get on that website, you will see that you can't go through this in an hour or even a day. You're going to want to come back a few times. There are a tremendous amount of resources out there, a lot that you can download. So I really do recommend and encourage and thank you for putting that together, because I know that's a lot to coordinate.
And
to
we're
put it all
celebrating
together.
our 15th anniversary of International Child-Centered Divorce Month this year.
Wow, that's incredible. And I mean, obviously we see taking care of our children is at the top of our list. So we want them to come through this divorce with as little adverse impact as possible. And being mindful is obviously very important through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And we are challenged because we are very stressed. There's a lot going on. And so I think that becomes very important to be mindful and be aware. So I'm going to ask, can you share a little bit more about what is a child-centered divorce?
Yeah, so a child-centered divorce is about protecting your children and putting your children's best interests first. And if no matter how two parents may feel about each other that created the divorce and going through the divorce, and there's so much stress and anxiety and tension, and we all know the emotions that can be connected, regardless of how you feel about one another, hopefully both of you can agree about loving your children and that your children are innocent. They didn't cause the divorce. Even if you're fighting about them, it's not their fault. It's your issues. And so we want to protect our kids and make sure we don't rob them of their childhood. So every decision we make from the very moment we decide about divorce, right on through to after the divorce and into the decades ahead of co-parenting, because divorce doesn't co-parenting doesn't end when a divorce is finalized. All of those decisions can be made in the child's best interest so that you have the happy ending that in which your child says, thank you when they're grown adults. Thank you for the way you handled the divorce. And so there's strategies and steps and tips and insights to help resolve conflict issues, make decisions in a better way, be more mindful of what's going on with your children. And all of that is part of a child-centered divorce.
And I think those are all important. And the quicker you can instill them into your lives and get into that habit together, I think the better it is. I also think if you can come together on things, it makes the rest of the divorce a little bit easier because you can see that this is somebody that you can work with, where sometimes going into the divorce, it's very adversarial and we need to get over that adversarial feeling. There's so many considerations that we need to think about when we contemplating a divorce, going through a divorce, whatever it might be. And generally, children sense there's something wrong. They see changes, there's tension in the home. Sometimes they even believe, as you kind of mentioned, they might think they are the cause of the problems, which is very difficult for any child to carry that kind of a burden. So what's important for parents to know and understand before breaking the divorce news to the children?
So you want to make sure that there's certain messages that you share with the kids. First, I want both parents to get together as much as possible on the same page and be aware that this is all about protecting the children that we both love, making decisions on their behalf. So trying to get your ego out of the way, get your anger and the tension out of the way as much as possible. And the question to answer is, do I love my children more than I may dislike or hate my ex? And if you could say, yes, I do love my children, then that gives you the wherewithal to think twice before you make decisions that are going to be harmful for the children emotionally and psychologically. So you want to remind your children that they are not to blame about the divorce. Even if you're fighting over the kids, it's never their fault. And
I love that question, by the way.
Thank you. And kids have a tendency to blame themselves, even as old as teens. Kids will, if I got better grades in my report card, maybe mom and dad wouldn't be fighting. If I wasn't bashing my brother or sister, maybe they would be divorcing. If I cleaned up my room and listened to them more, maybe they wouldn't be divorcing. There's all kinds of things depending on their age that gets into their heads, and they trying to figure it out and they can't. No one can figure it out. The adults can't figure it out. That's why they're getting a divorce. So we want to make sure we repeatedly remind the kids that none of this is their fault. We want them to understand that both parents are going to love them forever and ever, and both parents are going to stay their parents. There's a big fear of insecurity. If my parents are divorcing, maybe one of them will divorce me in the future and stop loving me. We want to make sure children understand that that is never, ever going to happen. And that this is about change and not about blame. So it's important that both parents don't point fingers and say, if it wasn't for your dad's affair, we wouldn't be having a divorce. If it wasn't for your mom being an alcoholic, we wouldn't be having a divorce. That is not information for the children, even teens, because their brains can't comprehend the magnitude of these emotional issues, these relationship issues that the parents have been dealing with. So we want to talk to the children about the fact that we are still a family and always will be a family in form, but the form is changing. There's going to be two homes, and you'll spend time in one home or the other home, and things are different in every divorce. But what's important is that change is a normal part of life. Seasons change, grades change in school, our hairstyles change, our clothing changes, our sports teams change. Change is part of life. So the divorce is not something that's as frightening as it may appear. It's just a change in the form of our family. And what's most important is that you're still going to be loved, you're going to be safe and protected, and that we make sure that both parents understand that this is what they want to leave, the message they want to leave with the children, that life is going to move on, and we are taking care of the situation to make it the best possible way, the smoothest possible transition. And then it's my job to really shake the parents up to make sure they follow through in making mature, responsible, adult parenting decisions, always mindful about how the children are going to be impacted by every decision that the parents make.
And you've mentioned a myriad of factors to consider in that. Obviously the kid carrying the burden of thinking, what did I do wrong? If I could have only been a little bit better, is enormous and something that needs to be dispelled immediately. One of the things I tell some of my clients, which I think is so important as well, is if there was ever a time for a parent to be able to role model how to deal with adversity or a difficult situation, which is important for children to see, this is it. This is one of the hardest experiences that a family can go through, and parents individually can go through as well. So, they might even be too young to really know how to express themselves. And that's another piece that we need to, reason with, and how do we deal with that? And part of the reason you might be getting divorced is you haven't been great communicators, and now we have to co-parent from afar, and all these considerations are very, very big, and they don't just happen. They take practice. As Rosalind said, there's a little bit of maybe needing that accountability coach, not just a divorce coach or not just a guide through the process, but even beyond, and bringing this child-centered approach into the process right away gets you that time or more time to practice these principles, which I think becomes so much more important and helps you get through the process that much easier as well.
Well said. And I especially appreciate you bringing up a point that I always bring up when I'm interviewed, and that is that the children are watching you and you are role models. It's so important to keep that in mind. Every decision you make, every move you make, children are learning from you. So if you were role modeling a way of dealing with with stress in life and conflict and difficulty, which, as we know, divorce is hugely challenging. But if you can overcome those challenges in a way that the children can respect and honor and learn from, then you are raising a more mature, responsible adults ahead. Too often the parents behave in a very immature way, and then we expect our children to grow up and have healthy relationships and do things differently. It's especially embarrassing when the two parents can't be in the same room for a graduation or a birthday party or a wedding, when the children have to figure out how to deal with the two parents. It should never be the parents' responsibility, the child's responsibility, to be accommodating how the parents are going to be. We should never put that burden on our children. And so thank you for bringing that point up, because
Absolutely. So I'm going to try to slide one more question in before the break real quick. So we see that we're in a stressful situation. We're going through this fog of emotion. We're not at our best. What are some of the most important divorce mistakes that parents absolutely must avoid?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them, but let's do them as quickly as we can. The first is keeping conflict away from the children. Studies have proven again and again that it is conflict, fighting around the kids, in earshot of the kids, in the other room. When the kids are surrounded by conflict from parents, it hurts them and it changes who they are as children. It changes their brains and it creates deep insecurities, wounds, and scars in children. We also want to make sure that as parents, we never badmouth the other parent, as tempting as it may be, as justified as we feel it is, to the children, because again, it hurts children. Children innately love both parents, even if one or both aren't good parents. They love those parents. And when you put down the other parent, even with your body language, your tone of voice, a gesture, a rolling of the eyes, kids pick up on that, and they feel guilty for, I'm loving this other parent that my one parent hates. And how does a child reconcile all of that? It's very difficult and confusing for them. So we never do that. We also want to make sure we're always reminding them that they're innocent and not to blame, and that we never put them in a position where they have to be a spy for us. It's very tempting, especially when one parent starts dating. What did the date look like? Where did you go? What did you do? What did they feed you? You know, all these questions. Some of them are innocent, but kids can pick up on when you're trying to unravel things and have your kids spy for you and provide answers and information and insights that they don't feel comfortable sharing with you. So it puts the kids in a very awkward situation when you're making them become spies for you. They'll either lie or they'll tell you the truth, and either way, they're not feeling comfortable inside. Equally important is you don't want them to be becoming your messenger. It's so tempting to say, listen, I'm going to be an hour late on Friday. Tell your mother such and such. And what if the child forgets? What if the child gets the message wrong? Sometimes the children are so angry at one or both parents, they'll purposely get the message wrong. There's a lot of mind games that children will play because they're so upset and angry and confused about divorce. There are scheduling tools online that are very inexpensive that you can use to keep all of the adult details in place so that you don't have to put extra burdens on your children. And when you do that, you're giving them a child-centered divorce. You're giving them more peace of mind. What you're doing is giving them the childhood innocence that they deserve to have so that they're not parenting their parents in inappropriate times when they're too young. Even as teens, they're too young to be parenting.
That's so crucial. I tell clients sometimes, unfortunately, I have to tell them, you call them your kids, not your pawns, right? Don't use them as pawns. They're your kids. And you wouldn't want to be put in that situation. So why would you put somebody you love in that situation?
That's right.
All that you said, I wish I could have written them down quick enough, but they are so crucial. And I think often because people are in their own stress, they're in their pain, they're not always aware of what they're doing, but sometimes just highlighting that brings it to the forefront and it helps them to be able to do that in such a better way and act in a better way. And we do have to go to a break. I'm going to ask, though, before we do, what is an easy way for people to get in touch with you?
Yes, you can reach me at Rosalind, ROSALIND, at childcentereddivorce.com, and find me at the website child-centered with an ED, childcentereddivorce.com. And all of my books, courses, and programs are all available right at that website.
Great. And we will be right back. Can't wait to get to the second half of the show. Thank you.
Family court system, there are no winners. Everybody loses, especially the children. I know, because my custody battle lasted years, was completely unnecessary, and financially devastating. That experience inspired SplitSmart. Split Smart is designed to empower both parents by giving them the structure they need to stay on course for a more peaceful and respectful co-parenting future. For less than amicable couples, our unique line item negotiation approach helps soften sometimes emotional stances into child-centered agreements that both parents can live with. Do you want your children to thrive and grow up with healthy, loving relationships with both parents? How much easier would it be if you could bypass the conflict and create a clear, supportive, and comprehensive co-parenting plan and schedule that's tailored specifically for your family? Can you imagine what it would be like if there were no arguments about money or child support? If any of this appeals to you, if you want to minimize the expense and drama of divorce, do yourself and your children a big favor and use Split Smart to craft your co-parenting and support plans. And as an added benefit, even if you've done your best and still can't get all the way there, Split Smart will have your information well organized, so a skilled mediator or family lawyer can efficiently help your family cross the finish line. Visit splitsmart.com today to get started on creating a brighter and more joyous tomorrow for you and your kids.
Hello, welcome back to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. Our guest today is Rosalind Sedacca, and we are talking about what is a child-centered divorce. And we have covered so much. I'm going to try to cover some of the topics. I know I didn't get them all down, but obviously your background is very powerful as to why and what you do. And as we mentioned earlier, there are people that have been following your work for quite a few years at this point. We spoke about what is a child-centered divorce, and with that, we spoke about Child-Centered Divorce Month, going on its 15th year now, which is incredible. And that is resources literally from all over the globe on 4 different continents, helping people get through this difficult process. There are a lot of things to understand before telling your kids. We covered a lot of those, telling the kids messages, how to message, and the kind of ways that you want to interact with them to role model for them in order to make sure that they come out okay. And we spoke a lot about keeping conflict away from the kids, and even simple things that seem like nothing, to say, hey, can you do me a favor, just quickly text your mom, text your dad this, and not to use them in those ways, but to do it yourself and keep them as children and let them have their childhood, which I think is such a nice message for them as well. So welcome back, Rosalind. Thank you. We have a lot more to go. As we said, many family units have kids. It is important, and as important as it is for you to go through the process, make sure that you are okay, it's equally important to make sure your children are okay as they go through this process as well. Mm-hmm. And you spoke a little bit about this before the break, but I'm going to ask, what are some of the ways to help ensure that your children are doing okay?
Well, you want to be very mindful as parents more than ever before. So the children need your attention as much as possible. They just need to know that they are loved, that they are safe, and that things are going to be okay. So the reassurance in any ways you can is very important. And I highly recommend conversations in the car when you're driving the kids to school or a sports team or groceries. Just having conversations in casual ways to find out how they're feeling about things and if anything's upsetting them. And if anything is, because it's hard for children to express themselves, you want to get down on eye level, whatever that is their age, and look them in the eye and give them permission to express what they're feeling, to vent, to say what's going on, and not make them wrong. Even if you don't agree with what they're saying, acknowledge their right to feel that way, and then try to come up with a way to handle the situation. Obviously, you can't undo a divorce, which is what most children are wanting, and they need to know that this is a permanent situation in their life. But there may be some little things you can do changing some of the agreements or rules or ways things are handled to be a little more friendly for them. And you're not going to know that unless you ask and unless you listen carefully to what they're saying. Also, as a parent, never be afraid to apologize. It's so rewarding for a child to hear a parent say, you know, mom made a mistake. I should never have said that. I should never have decided that. We're going to change the agreements now and we're going to do things differently. So even if you've made some of the mistakes we've discussed today, even if you've done them 2 years ago or 5 years ago, you made those decisions, you could change things at any time and let your kids see that you're flexible and that it's normal to make mistakes. We all do. Owning them is a very big, mature way of handling things. And kids need to see their parents being as responsible and mature as possible. So being mindful is very important. Self-love for yourself is important. Forgiving yourself for getting into this mess, for having the divorce, and trying to forgive your ex, which of course can be very difficult depending on the level of tension. But you forgive another person, not for them, because you're not going to forget the hurt and pain and the drama that you may have been gone through. But you forgive them to cut the cord and say, I'm done suffering and struggling and replaying those old tapes and those old movies over and over again in my head. And I'm ready to move on. So you forgive yourself, you forgive your ex, you cut the cord, you start fresh and new. And when you do, you're a better parent. You're also a much better prospect for finding another love relationship that's going to be more fulfilling for you and create a happier future for everyone in the family.
I think that comes back to a lot of what we've said in, through this show is you've got this amazing opportunity in some ways to be able to role model. And for your kids who were thinking, if I just cleaned up my room a little more, if I had just done a little bit better on my report card, whatever it might be, it gives them the understanding and relief, maybe even to understand that nobody's perfect and that's okay. And you still be loved no matter what. And all those kind of things that we've spoken about before, I think become such a wonderful way to show and successfully parent. And so I'm going to ask, take you from successfully parenting kind of one-on-one with your kids, how do you take that to successfully co-parenting after the divorce?
Yeah, and that's always one of the most challenging things. And of course, there's no simple answers for that because no two couples are alike and challenges are different. But there are things that we have to keep in mind. The better our communication skills, the better we're going to be able to co-parent, remembering that co-parenting is a lifelong process. My son is married and I'm a grandma, and you're still a co-parent. You're still dealing. My ex and I were at my son's major events in life, and we were at his wedding and the birth of the baby and all of those things. And I just saw my ex over the holiday season when I was visiting my son and his family. So you want to behave in a way that you're not embarrassing your children or burdening your children emotionally. And you want to be learning communication skills. So you're not putting your ex on the defensive when you talk about things, because issues are going to come up and conflicts going to come up. So you want to be able to use language about the child, about the children, rather than about me. It's not that I want this. It's about Johnny said that, Susie asked that. Then you're talking about the kids, the one area that we know that you both have in common, otherwise you would never be seeing each other again or speaking to each other again, is the children. So focus on the children's information and not about your needs and wants, which your ex may be very happy to step on. But when it comes to the children, then there's a reason to be talking about this. And there's an excellent question that you could be asking yourself when it comes to any parenting decision. And that is, would I still be making the same decision if we were still married? Would I still be making the same decision if we were still married? So when it comes to discipline and school issues and health crises and all of the important things that happen in a normal parenting situation, you want to think, am I making a decision in the best interest of my child, or would I have decided differently if we were still married, but now I want to screw it, my ex, and I'm going to say no when I would have said yes, or vice versa. That's when you're getting into muddy grounds. When who are you hurting? Because inadvertently, you're very often hurting your children.
And sometimes people forget. They say, how am I going to co-parent? Well, you've been co-parenting up to this point, right?
Exactly.
Even when you're married, you really are technically co-parenting with your spouse.
Exactly.
It might not be the right way or the best way or in alignment, but it doesn't mean it always has to be that way. We might just need to change the way you co-parent as opposed to start to co-parent, I think, which is a big difference. And you had mentioned, everyone's divorce is a personal experience, which is true. You come with your own feelings, your own biases, your own experiences. What advice would you give someone starting the divorce process, especially relating to the kids?
Well, you want to keep aware of how the kids are feeling, and put yourself in your child's shoes, whatever age they are, because being a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8 or 12-year-old, a 16-year-old is totally different experience. And so you may have more than one child, and each one is going to be experiencing the divorce situation differently. So you want to be very aware of how kids at different ages are reacting and how your particular child is reacting. And you want to be looking for changes. Some children will regress and start bedwetting or carrying the blanket around again, and things from younger years, and become very introverted, and some of them even suicidal if there's too much drama in their life. Other kids will start acting out and having behavior problems. Their grades in school starts failing. They become bullying to siblings, bullying to friends at school. Their personalities are changing. You don't want to wait until this is dramatic. So if you're mindful and alert and watching your kids, you could pick up on subtle changes. Those changes are ways kids are coping with uncomfortable situations that they can't express and exactly understand, but they're in pain. And bringing them to a child psychologist, talking to a divorce coach or a therapist, addressing it in some way, joining a support group will help you and arm you with tools and strategies, because no two situations are the same, but there are ways of dealing with children's issues. And the earlier you deal with them, the more successful you are in reversing them. Kids need to feel heard and valued and acknowledged, as we all do. As adults, we need to feel the same way. Heard, valued, and acknowledged. And that's important through the entire process.
I think that comes back to also the conversations in the car, to the grocery store, to school. Those can be almost like an early warning, an alert, so to speak, for you. Because if somebody's engaged with you in conversation and now all of a sudden they're stopping, or the conversation tone changes, whatever it might be, these are very easy ways to pick up on some of these things that are happening, because you don't see what's going on at school always. It's kind of hearsay from a teacher, from another student, from something like that. But this is where you can actually get it firsthand.
Yes, and do bring the school system into your universe. Tell the school system, tell the teacher, tell the guidance counselor, whoever is available, and let them keep an eye on your child, because teachers are very often the first ones to notice changes in behavior that you may not be noticing at home, and you don't see them as much as the teachers see them. So talk to those teachers, and some schools actually have divorce clubs and things like that, and take advantage of any resources that are there, because this is not the first divorce in the universe that you're having. This is something where there's lots of experts who have skills and experience with, and that makes a big difference. And one other thing I did want to bring out is that you need to learn when to let go and not fight. Pick your battles. Pick your battles with your ex. Pick your battles with your kids. It's so easy to want to control and manipulate everything going on in your life now. And when you let go and say, okay, I would have done things differently than Dad's doing it. However, that's not the most important thing for my kids. There's more peace all around. And then when there's something really important, something that's urgent, that affects your values and their quality of life, then you need to stand firm and say, listen, this is something that's unacceptable to me. We need to talk together. We need to mediate. We need help in making a decision. But every nuance in life should not be one of those things. So relax, let go, and pick your battles, and there'll be more peace all around for the entire family.
I think if you can let go a little bit, it's so important, because so much does sometimes feel out of your control, and your kids are a little easier to control, so to speak. So you just got to be careful with that. We have to start wrapping up, and I've got about 10 more questions for you. But you mentioned earlier about your ebook. You have a free ebook for our listeners, and it's always nice to have a free giveaway. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
For sure. It's called Post-Divorce Parenting: Success Strategies for Getting It Right. And it's right on the homepage of my website, childcentereddivorce.com. And there's lots of information related to everything we've been talking about here, and a lot more in that ebook. And I also have several other e-courses and e-programs: anger management for co-parents, breaking the divorce news to kids, lots and lots of program choices on co-parenting, and they're all at childcentereddivorce.com. In the menu bar, just go to coaching programs, and you'll find a big array of options that fit your budget, that fit your time frame, and where you're at this particular moment.
And I so encourage everybody to go there. And I'm going to ask if you can just share, what takeaways might you have, or insights might you have, before we really get to wrapping up the show?
Well, yeah. So
I know there's a lot.
There's a lot. So first, remembering that you are a role model. Your kids are watching what you do and the impact of every decision you make. Be willing to apologize when necessary, because that's a very big impact on children. And remember to be mindful of what's really important, and not over stress over so many things that are happening in your life, because what you believe becomes your reality. And you want to be focusing on a brighter future for you, a brighter future for the family, and for the kids specifically. And you want to prepare yourself for love ahead. So it may not be something you're thinking of right now, but hopefully you're going to find a lasting love relationship. And before you do that, you want to put yourself in the right mindset so that you are ready to attract that into your life and not repeat old mistakes.
Which does happen, unfortunately, too often. Rosalind, one more time, if you can share how people can get in touch with you and that valuable website, because there really is so much on there. If you can just share that quickly,
Absolutely.
please.
So in January, you want to go to Divorced with an ED, divorcedparentsupport.com for the free gifts. Year round, you want to go to childcentereddivorce.com for all the resources I have, including the free ebook and lots of other free information. And you could reach me by email at rosalindwrites@gmail.com or rosalind@childcentereddivorce.com.
Rosalind, thank you so much. This is such a difficult subject. We are individuals. Our kids are individuals. Our soon-to-be exes or exes are individuals. And being able to juggle that in a way that is not easy. And you've been able to bring so much insight and such wonderful practical points that somebody listening to the show literally can walk away right now and improve that relationship immediately, which I think is invaluable for anyone. So please do go to that show. It's true. It's true. I'm not saying that for any other reason, but it is true. So please do go and visit Rosalind's websites. I think you will get so much out of that. I am Hirsch Sermon, your host for the Financial Wellness Hour. If you missed those websites, you can reach me through lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. And you can reach out for questions for me or for Rosalind. I will relay them. Rosalind is a sought-after resource. And as you can tell, people know her from all over the world. She has made an impact on so many people, which is amazing. CC Schatz, thank you for doing all this magic behind the scenes. It makes it easier for me to just have a conversation with Rosalind, which is always fun and always learn so much. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to our next show. Thank you so much.